down a little bit. Is that something where in certain scenarios he could maybe move down from safety and you get two other guys?
Well, I mean, there's ways that we can put safeties in the box. I don't know that we call it a linebacker. We can put safeties in the box, and we can go dime defense where we've got 7 DBs out there.
So basically, you have 3 safeties on the field together.
We can. We're going, and that's all situational too. You don't need 3 safeties in the 3 safeties on the field if they've got 2 tight ends and a fullback. You probably need some bigger front guys. So personnel wise, because it's personnel driven, we're going to match their personnel. And so when they get us in personnel situations where we can, we're going to put the best guys out there. And in some scenarios, based on what we know to this day, is that you could see that combination.
Hi, I'm Michelle Kaufman from Miami Herald.
Yes.
Welcome to Miami.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to ask you, you've been around the game, you've seen a lot of coaches, new coaches taking over, new programs.
Are you trying to say I'm old?
No, I'm old too. Oh, I did say 2. We're both kind of old. Okay. But older.
I'll promise you I'm older than you.
Just from everything you know and everything you've seen, how would you describe Mario Cristobal as a leader, and what do you think he brings? What is it that makes people so excited about the fact that he's taking over this program?
That's really an easy answer. Okay. It's not what I've seen, it's what I knew when I came here, because I would not be here if he was not the head coach at Miami, I don't think.
Okay.
And that's not, we work together. Number one, he's an outstanding person. He cares about people, he invests in people, and he commands the room when he walks in the room naturally.
That keeps coming up. Every player talked about it.
He doesn't have to, he doesn't have to act like he's in charge. It's evident based on his personality, his wisdom, the way he communicates, and the way he deals with people, that he is the leader. And so it was easy for me to make the decision to come here because of the University of Miami and what it can be and will be, with a lot of hard work ahead of us. But it was really easy because it was coach.
You talk about the U, the brand of the U. What, from the outside, the preconceived notions that you may have had about what Miami is versus what Miami really is? Because I am a native of Miami and came to school here a long time ago. From the outside, there seems to be this notion that Miami is a big program, a big school, a big whatever, when in reality it's this little tiny private school in Coral Gables. What's the reality of coaching at UM versus what the perception may be?
Well, the first thing is I didn't have a perception. It was real to me because I recruited Miami since the 80s. So I've been to Miami many times. So I knew where it was. And, when you drive from Gulliver Prep to South Miami High School in 1988, you kind of know where Coral Gables is and where the university is and what it is. And being a college coach, you kind of got to ride by and see. And I'd visited here when Coach Johnson was the head coach as a staff. I'd visited here when Coach Erickson was here. So I've seen it, but then the perception too is reality in that, I coached in games against the University of Miami in the Orange Bowl, the Oval Orange Bowl.
Right.
And
which I wish still existed.
So it's not a perception, it was real. I saw it firsthand. And that made the transition easy too, because you know what this place is. You know what it can be with a lot of hard work, and it will be.
I was going to say, you feel really confident that it could be that feeling of the Orange Bowl Hurricanes, not exactly replicated, but you think that can...
If we work hard and we get the culture right, which has been before, then there's no question because of its location, because of what it's done before, and the fact that we have the head coach and the staff, and we have a group of players that have bought in. They're working hard. They're not looking to what's 2 weeks, 3 weeks we're not at the trophy ceremony. We have a lot of hard work to do, a lot of hard work. But they're willing to do it, and they're doing it with a good energy. That's what got Miami to what we're talking about. That's what got them where they were.
Right.
And so to be quite frank with you, everybody wants a chance to be a champion. Well, when you have done it as long as I've done it, you don't make a decision to go somewhere unless you don't think you can be a champion.
That being said, that's been the thinking for 20 years, that it can be what it was, and it hasn't been what it was for almost 2 decades. It's been really
Well, I went to the University of Alabama with Coach Saban in 2007, and it had been, and 3 years later it was again.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying...
Right.
But
you lost to Louisiana Lafayette, I think, right?
In 07 we did.
Yeah,
why do you want to bring that up?
But I mean, okay, so that you have that experience because, like you said, there's been coach after coach here. It's been 20 years of underachieving, really, except for 1 year they started 10-0 and then at the end.
Right.
So can you draw on that experience and see how it was at the University of Alabama was where they
Absolutely.
were dropped and came back?
Absolutely. And it's an easy answer. It's one that you're going to use your pen quick and look at me like, okay, give me more, and I don't have any more. It's physical and mental toughness backed up by hard work. It's not magic. It's not. And so now you've got to have good players, and they've got to buy in, and they have to change the culture. But it's been done here before. It can be done again. It will be done again.
Is it hard with youth today, making that hard work culture versus the instant gratification? I mean, I was here in the 80s, in the mid-80s, with those teams we're talking about, Jimmy Johnson teams, and those were different times. The players then were not only happy to not have fancy facilities, they were kind of proud that they didn't have it, and they were beating the teams with the fancy facilities. And
well, we will not, as a staff, change our expectations because people think people have changed. That's not going to happen. We've got, with the leader we have and the staff we've got, we know what the expectations are, what our expectations are, what the University of Miami's expectations are. So we're not going to alter that based on how somebody feels that day. Go to work, get it done.
So the kids today, you think they can?
Absolutely.
If led the right way, they can still
Absolutely.
not have all of the distractions.
Yeah, you don't have 3-a-day practices anymore for 21 straight days in fall camp like they let us do in the 80s. That's a lot of practices. And you don't have that. Now it's, time off and so many days in pads and so many days in shorts. And, there's a lot of control, and rightfully so. We got to take care of the game. We really do. So that doesn't limit us. It doesn't change the expectations.
You're taking over a defense that, I guess, statistically at least, hasn't done great the last couple of years. Can you give some signs for fans, not just reporters, but fans, why this defense might be better, perhaps, than it has been?
Again, we keep using that same word, but it's one of our base rudiments. I mean, we have certain expectations, and we're going to work to a level to accomplish those expectations and demand it and command it, and our players are embracing it. And so that's what you do.
Are there some strengths you can point to on this D that you like? You've been like yourself.
Well, we still got a lot of evaluation to do in our work process because, like I said, we've only played 15 days of football with these guys. But I will say this: we can run. We're a fast football team. Coach Fell has done a phenomenal job in changing some of the body mass that we're dealing with, stronger, bigger, faster, with the guys we had. And so when you start seeing body fat going down in huge numbers and strength going up and speed and workload going up, with all the computers, everybody runs around with a computer on their back now, and they can tell you how many steps they had, how fast he ran, what he got up to 21 miles an hour, X number of times in practice. That's all out of the realm of what a defensive coordinator usually thinks about, but I can read a computer report and no, we didn't have that.
You had to do the eyeball test.
Yeah, we did.
Like Coach, the tackling was in the spring. Was it up to where you wanted it?
It's never where you want it. because you don't want to miss one. But the big thing about tackling is, in this day and age, with the space game as it is, a lot of they're creating space, getting the ball in space, getting the ball in the seams of things. The first thing you got to do with tackling is you got to minimize the times that you have one-on-one tackles, because when you watch missed tackles in a season, and you take a cut up, which I have watched, okay, for every team I've been on, this team included, but every team I've been on, and you watch that, you would be surprised at the percentage of those missed tackles that's one guy. It's a one-on-one tackle. Well, that thing's 53 and a half yards wide. One guy one-on-one, and you got Waddle with the ball. That's a hard tackle. So you got to minimize the times that you're in one-on-one. How do you do that? Through structure and teaching pursuit angles, effort, and getting more hats to the ball. It's hard to miss tackles when you got 3 people on the tackle, 4 people on the tackle, 5 people on the tackle. It's very easy to miss tackles when you've got one guy. And so we improved that a lot in the spring. We did.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about what appealed to you about Caleb Johnson, you and Mario and the defense and the recruiting staff. And is he a Mike? Is he an outside linebacker?
No, he's an inside backer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's an inside backer.
So he'll compete with Corey Flagg and others. At
Yes,
Mike.
And we'll get this system can get both the 2 best backers. It doesn't have to be in regular defense. It's Sam Mike Will. When we put the star on the field in nickel defense or dime defense, then it's Mac Money. And so, we're going to get the best 2 guys on the field, and then we'll tweak our calls best on that. We're not going to make a call and stand one of the best players on the field standing over here just so we can say, if we got 2 Mikes that are better than any of the Monies or Wills, then we got to tweak things.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so-
and the skill set that appealed to you in pursuing him in the portal.
Well, he runs very well. And he's a smart guy, really smart guy. So,
Do you feel like with obviously Messidor, Darrell Jackson, Lichtenstein, Moultrie added to what you had with Harrison Hunt and Chance Williams and Jafari, do you now have, do you think, an upper echelon Power 5 front 4? Which was a question in recent years. It hasn't looked like the traditional Miami.
With a lot of work.
Okay.
With a lot of work. But having said that, and we go back to that,
obviously.
I know y'all are going to go down the but that we go to the same church every day, okay? So we hear the same sermon every day. So you're going to hear work, go to work, and that's part of the culture. That's the lead facet. So here's the thing: we've got to go to work. We've got the guys who can get it done. But here is the key to what you just said. And this came about really in probably the last 5 to 6, maybe 7 years. When hurry up offense first started, you saw a lot of guys going down. You saw a lot of tired football teams in the fourth quarter, and teams that maybe it was a 21-18 game or a 31-28 game. It's going fast, and then all of a sudden the hurry up team breaks away at the end because they're wore out. And so what we really figured out at that point in time, when you start dealing with those big guys, you start dealing with 290 to 321 out there, and they're having to play 80 snaps, 85 snaps, some games 90 snaps. That's not going to look very good. So what you really figured out is you've got to just get the notion that there's 2 starting defensive tackles, the right defensive tackle and the left defensive tackle. That's a misnomer in the way we do things now. Yeah, they're going to put on the scoreboard because that's traditionally the way it's been done, somebody's picture, and say he's the starting defensive tackle for today's game. Well, based on the personnel they put on the field, he may not be the first guy to go out there, okay? He may play the first series and somebody else play the second and somebody else play the third and he play the fourth again. So we have to have more than 2 starting defensive tackles. We're never going to put, unless it's goal line short yardage, more than 2 out there.
Right.
But we have to have more than 2 starting tackles. We've got to have 4, 5, 6 starting defensive tackles. And with the addition of what we put into the program and then the strengths and gains we've made and the work we've put in, we're getting to that point right now. We feel comfortable with it today. Now, 21 days from now, there'll be a different assessment.
One question which we both got, and others you did as well in March, was would you consider making James Williams a linebacker? Was it ever considered, or do you think James Williams is at his best playing safety, even though you have multiple quality safeties?
Well, he's
on
a
the
safety, okay, and we're still in the process of figuring out who's what. I don't care if we call it, A, B, C, D. I don't care if we call them lion, tiger, giraffe. It doesn't matter what we call them. We have to get for the situation in the game, we have to get the best 11 players on the field.
You mentioned the best 11. You've got some true freshmen. What's your philosophy on Nigel Kelly, Wesley Bassines? True freshmen in general, is it hard to trust them in a big game when the first game is Texas A&M?
No. I'm an old coach and I remember what you're saying, but in the day and age with the transfer portal and with 3 and done, well, if you just say, well, I don't believe in playing freshmen, then okay, here's the problem with that. If you played him in the first, second, third, fourth game, how good's he going to be when you hit the meat of the schedule? Okay? So we go out there that everybody's got the U on their helmet at practice. We don't even think about it in terms of he's a freshman. If the learner hadn't learned, the teacher hadn't taught.
So along those lines,
so we have to get them taught and get them on the field. Does that make sense? If they're the best players. So age is irrelevant.
Which of the true freshmen have maybe impressed you through the spring practices or that arrived over the summer?
Well, we're still in the process of evaluating that without that. I mean, there's been some of the names you mentioned. I mean, very athletic. Now, we had some guys' injuries. We had a lot of injuries and stuff that we didn't get work that have looked good in off season, have looked good in the weight room. They've studied real hard. In the OTAs, they've picked up things really well. But we don't play in a gym with a basket in shorts and a t-shirt. We play with pads on, and so we got a lot of work to do out there to get that done.
Kevin, Al Blade's journey the last year and a half, 2 years, has been challenging to say the least. So what have you seen from someone who had to go through what he went through, the hard, and then last year,
resiliency. Okay. Resiliency. In this day and age, in any facet of the world we live in, it says something about a man who has gone through trial and tribulation, but yet he's still pursuing it, and he's working really hard. That in itself kind of tells you what his DNA is. So usually when you see that, success follows.
If you have to point to a strongest area of the defense, whether it's defensive line, linebacker, or the secondary, is there one you could pick right now and say this is going to be our strength, our go-to?
Not yet. Not prepared to say that yet. I will say coming out of spring, probably the most surprising advancement that just in looking at things and talking to people, probably the corner position made or appeared, we were pleasantly surprised with what we had at corner.
Coach, Brandon, football, I mean, it's kind of a calling card over the years, the Miami defenses. But, this is, of course, your first opportunity to coach these guys. And they appear to have a lot of, veteran leadership, guys who've played a lot of snaps. But is it showing up in places that are important in preparation and different things that matter, that help you win football games?
Yeah. Well, the first thing you have to understand is when you start talking about experience, experience is important. But good or great experience is real important. So we're trying to work hard and not worry about what the past is, good, bad, or different, although they will draw on that. And what we've seen is these guys have bought in, and they are working extremely hard. And so there's a lot of guys that played a lot of snaps on the field. And you can tell they're starting to get a comfort level with our system. They're starting to get a comfort level with embracing the workload that we're putting on them. That's maturity.
You've been obviously around, the country as far as some great programs. What attracted you to this?
Well,
pretty much been
I'd covered it earlier with the guys. Obviously, I coached against the University of Miami in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. I've seen those teams. It's not a perception. It was real. They were right there. So I saw it firsthand. And so that was intriguing. But the real reason is Coach Cristobal. We had worked together, the kind of man he is, the kind of leader he is, the kind of coach he is.
Where did you work together?
At Alabama, yeah. And so those two factors are the reason that I chose to be at Miami.
Do you ever, and I think I've heard you saying this in some other platforms, do you ever talk to players about what those Miami teams were like? Or is that even important to talk about?
At the right time. I mean, Coach does a really good job of the expectations of this football team. That's history. We embrace it, and we're proud of the people who laid the legacy.
You've got to be.
But this is 2022.
What is it like to have, other defensive minds around, like Alonzo Highsmith and guys that, have elite levels of understanding. I think everybody super respects you. I don't think anybody's trying to take anybody's job, but is there any bouncing that goes on as far as
No, they work in personnel and those type things.
So everybody stays in
I mean, we'll talk about different things. I know Ed and I have talked a couple of times about some coverage things. We got some coverage things that we got from Baltimore, from their coordinator way back in the day. Well, Ed was playing it, so we've talked about that. We do,
As far as just coming to season, probably my last question is, you've done this for so long. What excites you? Is it figuring out difficult challenges? Is it mentoring new kids? What kind of gets you up in the morning as far as
helping teach young people how to be champions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, man.
Thanks again for your time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. How you doing?
Good. Yep. Good.
Just another.
Coach Steele's dropping some magic.
Good job, Tom. Obviously.
Is that all?
We're gonna start as soon as we're gonna start to basically
Right.
move people away.
We have three of the teams.
You're more than welcome to not, but if
I'll sit here a minute and just make sure they go.
Hers are private. And then I look, I'm like, mine's gone. I thought she
I need to put.
I got a couple more questions. I hate to bother you.
You're not bothering me. That's what I do.
All right. This is more Kevin. I want to see, how would you describe your style of defense? Like, if you have to tell somebody who knew nothing about football, who knows enough about football to know what you're saying, this is the type of defense that I like to run. Like maybe as everyone said, he blitz 70% of the time. I know you said you're multiple, but
yeah.
If you had to describe it.
I'm going to get real technical here now.
Perfect, that's what I want.
Tell me who the quarterback is. Tell me what personnel they feature.
I see what you're saying. You tell me what you run.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say you're facing Rhett Lashley's offense from last year. What do you do to stop that offense?
Well, number one is they don't like four techniques. That's number one in the run game. That's number one. Number two is cut through all the eye candy and then make sure that the adjustments on things doesn't allow guys to run free. That you can't overcomplicate your adjustments because you get a lot of unusual formations usually when they cross the 50. You're going to get a lot of unusual formations and motions, unbalanced formations, those kind of things to get you misaligned to create a big play. So at the end of the day is if you can keep everything, and this is simplistic, but if you can keep everything in front of you and keep people from not getting baited by the eye candy and just play the play. Trust their eyes. You play a lot of things against it, but you can certainly do that.
Have you looked at the Texas A&M offensive system, the Clemson offensive system? Is that something you already delved into this
Well, I
offseason?
played them.
Okay, so you know what to do.
Played them
So-
twice. Say I played them in 17 and 19 at Auburn. I think one of them was 16-13. The other one was 19-17 at Clemson games. Then Texas A&M, they got the last year I coached against them. They got us, but I've coached against A&M, so I mean.
Right. So I mean, I'm curious, and try to be real about it if you can. But like the personnel you have here, and knowing what you know about what you're going to run, like, do you feel semi-confident that we have a decent chance to like at least stop these guys enough to where there's going to be a chance for our offense to do what they need to do?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't flunk our tests. If you flunk an English test, they fire the student. Okay? If you flunk our test,
What is your test?
the test is to get aligned with a group of guys that are physically and mentally tough, that have worked hard enough that they will not surrender what they work for. That's number one. Okay? And then put them in position to take away what offenses do best. Make them play left-handed.
Oh, love that. Love that. What if you're playing a left-handed quarterback? Make him play right-handed.
Make him play
Make him
right-handed.
play right-handed.
Coach, just for proper terminology, we've heard the star.
It's a nickel back.
So is that what you guys refer to it as?
No, star.
Okay, just call it the star. How do you want to use that? I mean, we heard Tyreek say probably would get some snaps there, but just envisioning who might slot in there. Which of the guys?
We still got to work at that. TC may get a little bit of it. Tyreek could get a little bit of it. Stevens could get a little bit of it. We got to look at some young guys there, So yeah, and we may use. I mean, I've had, going back to your deal of getting it right. We've had a star, a first and second down star, and a third down star.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
Could the Saints play there at all? Is he fast enough?
Not for that position, because remember, that's the star position. Now they have 3 wide receivers on the field.
Right.
So if you get out there, that's the slot receiver.
He did some of it in high school, so I was just curious.
That's the slot receiver. So you're going to have to stay in zone. Well, if you have to stay in zone, the play caller and the quarterback is going to know you have to stay in zone, because you can't man up. You can't put a linebacker on the slot receiver man to man.
Right.
So again, it's personnel matchup. Now, the same position is the Sam linebacker,
Right.
but they got one less wide receiver on the field.
Right.
So now he's doing the same thing, but he's playing a tight end.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Where does Chase Smith fit into all this? I saw him the other day, and he looks like a different. I mean, just looking at him, which I don't know what that counts for, but where do you use him? What do you think of him?
Because he missed spring practice, we still got to do some work. But, we'll start him out at the money position in nickel and the will position in regular, and then we'll go from there. He could play some Sam.
So the money and will are the same, just you're talking about terminology, correct?
Yeah, and the reason we call it different is because the adjustments are different for the will in regular than they are for the money in dime or nickel. And so if you call it the same thing, and the guy's thinking, well, I'm the will.
Right.
Well, no, you're the money. So you know the money adjustments and you know the will adjustments.
The mics at this point.
You don't want to call your kids by the same name.
the mics at this point in your mind, Caleb, I guess, right? Johnson.
Pardon me?
The Mike, middle linebacker for the guys. Caleb Johnson, is he one of the guys in there as far as?
Yes, he's one of the guys. That's where he's working.
Okay.
And we actually in nickel call that the Mac.
Okay.
So it's Mike and regular and the Mac.
I heard Ron Tyler say Mac. I'm like, does he mean Mike?
Yeah. Well, in nickel and dime, it's the Mac backer.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Same reason.
Right.
There's
they got
different
the responsibilities.
There's different. It's a different package.
So is Caleb, is Wayman there also? Is he Wayman on the weak side? Steve.
Wayman can play both.
Okay.
He did that in the spring. Corey is there.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, just trying to figure out in our minds where when we see guys,
That's okay. I'm still trying to figure it out too.
At defensive end, like, how do you decide who starts out practice one with the ones? Is it based on
It doesn't matter.
So you just pick out a hat?
It goes back to the same thing. We have convinced our guys, and we philosophically believe this. You cannot have 2 starting defensive ends.
Right.
You better have more.
So you'll pick 2 will rotate in, and
Next day it might be the other guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Just and so you mentally condition them to, hey guys, look, there may be games we play 80, 85 snaps. Hope not, but there may be. Well, do you want to play all 85 of them? Well, we can't say, okay, this is 1 and this is 2 and rep it out that way, and now when we had to put this guy in, there's a drop off. You have to prepare multiple starters. And so that old deal of, I hate the scoreboard announcing the starting lineup. Some kid, gets upset because, well, I didn't get announced, so he feels like a second teamer. Well, I mean, it just
tell Josh to run a really slow down offense. Say, listen, take every second on the play.
You know what?
Help us out a little bit.
No, I'm gonna tell you something. That would be like this right here. Okay, we're firemen. We're first responders. You don't want the fireman pulling up to your house tonight saying, who started this? Well, how did it happen? Well, it looks like it's burning pretty hard. I don't really know if I want to fight that. Hey, why don't that's not what happens. They jump out, they run, put the fire out, and they go back out and get back on the truck. So whatever he does, just push 911 when you need us. We're good.
Coach Steele, that's great. Cam, Kitchens, James Williams, Avante Williams. Can you get all 3 of them on the field at once?
You can.
I mean, do you plan to? How do you do that?
We got to work and still figure out if we're going to do that. I mean, we have ways to do it, but I got to know who's the quarterback, what's the offensive personnel on the field.
Okay.
We don't want to put 3 safeties out there just to put 3 safeties and they got 3 tight ends out there.
Can one play linebacker?
Well, he might be in the box safety, but we wouldn't call him a linebacker.
Okay.
We're not. I don't think any of those guys you would look at and say, move them to linebacker today.
Okay.
That was
They're
great.
so talented.
Thanks, Coach.
That's why.
I'm going to call 911 now.
You got it.
Also, some of those, Mitchell Agude was very impressive talking to.
We've got some really smart guys. We've got guys that really have high football IQs and smart guys.
What would you say about him, or what you've learned?
Football is very important to him.
Right.
He's very smart, but football is very important to him.
Okay, and what about, I just want to ask about Jafari Harvey. How is he progressing? He's kind of not saying underappreciated, but people in the other, they don't talk about him as much, on the ACC.
I would take him on any team that I've coached.
Okay, why?
Because, number one, he loves the game, and he plays every snap like it's his last snap he's ever going to play.
Okay.
Who's that? Sorry, I missed the first part of that.
Harvey.
Harvey.
Nope.
Gotcha.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's it been like for you, integrating all the guys who arrived in the last few months? A lot of Mitchell Agude, Akeem Mesidor, and all those guys.
It's been fun, but we've been practicing in basketball attire. We got to go to work here now with what we play in, but they'll answer. It's been fun though. Again, it goes back to the fact that old deal of those 11 starters. That's the biggest misnomer in football there was. Hurry up offenses did away with that. All right. So if you can say hurry up offenses changed football on the offensive side, having 18 to 22 or more starters and convincing your team that that's what you have and to embrace that rather than thinking, well, hey, I'm first team or second team. And so that's probably been the biggest change in the last 5-6 years is that.
Do you have that guy yet you can call a quarterback on the defense? The guy who's going to make sure everybody's lined up?
Well, our Mike backers did a really good job in the spring in the OTAs. And then, of course, our safeties. We put a lot on those guys. And they've all done a really good job of doing it. Yep.
Is Wesley the same? How's he doing? Is he okay?
Very well.
I know he was in a car accident.
He's doing good. Yeah, he's doing good.
He'll be able to be in practice.
Oh, yes.
In practice.
I mean, we're not supposed to talk about medical, but he was at practice. He was at the OTAs. He looks fine to me.
Okay, good. Good. He's pretty impressive young man.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I want to start
Appreciate it.